All right, everybody, welcome in. This is Happy Hour coming to you every Wednesday here on Action Network YouTube. I'm your host, Brendan Glasheen. Happy Hour is presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with promo code ACTION, ACTION, to get Bet365's exclusive sign-up offer in New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, Virginia, and Iowa. Bet $1 and get $200 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. We understand for the next 6 months that your weekends will be action-packed with tailgating and couch shifts, several other mechanisms for football consumption. It's the middle of the week, though, when your head, your mind, and your brain will be twisting and turning. That's a crazy line, man. Yeah, I think so-and-so is going to be ruled out. There's no chance that team can keep up with them. Those are some potential thoughts and sentences that will pop up this NFL season, and naturally, you'll want to process them and pick them apart. Now, where does that happen? The friend group text is a great place to start. The family chat, the office, or as the day winds down, you could very well be in the presence of those same people in chat mode and then be in their physical presence at your local establishment. We hope you consider us here at Happy Hour your desired destination. Coming up on tonight's Happy Hour, the latest news you need to know in the National Football League, bold predictions from each of our analysts, and we finish with Lions Chiefs 27 hours away, picks coming for the first game of 2023. But first, it's on to Luck Rankings. And we welcome in Sean Kerner and Nick Giffen, both of Action Network, the co-founders of Action Network's Luck Rankings. We're trying to get lucky as Happy Hour gets underway, gents. We dissect Luck Rankings from last year. If you're unfamiliar with the Luck Rankings, here's an idea of how things shook out in 2022. Nick, we'll go to you first. As far as what to expect from Luck Rankings, if someone is a beginner, you're just running into someone at the local establishment and they have no idea what you're talking about. What are the Luck Rankings?
Trying to quantify which teams have had better results than their actual on-field performance, meaning they've been a little bit lucky, or worse results than their actual on-field performance, meaning they've been unlucky. So we've developed a mathematical model, metrics to define something we call an expected score. And that expected score is compared to actual scores and win-loss records to give us something called a luck percentage. So we're literally going through every single play by play, and trying to figure out over the whole game how that correlates to an expected score metric. And we found by using that expected score metric, we can create a luck percentage, and we can use those luck rankings to make bets against the spread as well as on totals.
Great new feature in the free-to-download award-winning Action Network app. We have the Luck tab now available, which is going to allow for folks when they're going to make their selections, make their bets for NFL this season, they can find your luck rankings and what data from those luck rankings may apply to a particular game. When we discuss, Nick, on the new splits that will be available to people to consume, and you both do a great job getting this up in article fashion early in the week. Not to be confused with betting splits when we see how much one team as far as tickets and cash coming in. What can you tell us about the new splits in this another feature being added to this year's luck rankings?
Yeah, so last year we looked if a team was at least 16 places more unlucky than their opponent. If we bet the unlucky team against the spread, we found out we had a very high success rate. Well, we reworked the methodology a little bit in the offseason just to kind of improve it, make a little bit better fits. And it turns out now we're going to want to look at a luck difference of at least 24 places in our luck rankings, right? So if one team is 32nd and the other is 7th, let's say, that's a difference of 25. We would want to bet on the unlucky team to cover the spread. Additionally, using that luck percentage measurement, if a team is at least 50% more unlucky than their opponent, we can also use that to bet against the spread. So if a team covers at least one of those two criteria, at least 24 plus or at least 50% luck gap. The unlucky team against the spread is 96, 54, and 4 for a 64% hit rate against the closing spread. So like you mentioned, we're going to have luck feature in the Action app for every single game. And we'll also later in the year introduce luck totals.
That is fantastic. So as a base for this discussion, Sean Kerner, let's identify, because all we can work with now, unless you want to, meaning the audience, if you want to make anything of the preseason, I suggest you don't do so too much. We use how luck rankings applied and how they finished out in 2022. Who were the luckiest teams, Kerner, by the end of last season?
So last year, the top 3 luckiest teams in order were the Minnesota Vikings, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the New York Giants. And the Vikings went 11-0 in one-score games last year, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's unsustainable. And their schedule is pretty easy. Their schedule ranked 19th last season, but this year it'll be a bit tougher. They're ranked 11th in strength of schedule. So we could see, just as many one-score close games, but they're not going to go 11-0 on those. So they're a team that will certainly regress in that department. And the Eagles is an interesting one because they were the second luckiest team. I think they have the best roster in football. They have a very analytical coaching staff that usually puts them in position to win. So they're a great team, but this is where luck rankings are great. They still benefited from luck quite a bit. They went 7-4 in one-score games. They had the third best injury luck. So they could have a couple of things not go their way that's outside of their control, which might make them, a good team to fade in spots this year.
So with that in mind, perhaps they would end up being more of an unlucky team this year. We'll get to the unlucky teams of 2022. With what we know now, which is not much for 2023, who might set up as of today on the eve of the NFL season to be a lucky team?
Yeah, so if we look at our 3 unluckiest teams from last year, we, of course, would expect them to regress back maybe more towards the mean. So the unluckiest team, dead last, was the New Orleans Saints. The second most unlucky team last year was the Indianapolis Colts, and the third most unlucky team, number 30 in the rankings, was the Chicago Bears. I do think all will improve, but I think the Bears and the Saints are both very interesting because those two teams both set up with top 4 schedule improvements, strength of schedule improvements. So both of those teams should progress. The Bears were the opposite Eagles. The Eagles were 7-1 in one-score games. The Bears were 1-7 in one-score games. The Saints, meanwhile, had a lot of bad luck in the turnover department and in the kicking department, where opponents made over 91% of field goals against them. While they had a terrible year with Will Lutz kicking, they have since replaced Will Lutz, so they should have some improvement in the kicking game as well. So I really look especially for the Saints and the Bears to improve based off schedule as well as just luck regression, and the Colts should progress as well just based off of regression back to the mean.
Got it. And the schedules are the best way, I think, based on what you've both said, to identify who might, if you were lucky last year, well, your schedule, in all likelihood, because of your luck, that means you had success. You won games. Your schedule will be harder. And for the teams that you just mentioned, Nick, your schedule might soften up a bit and you might have more opportunities. And I'm imagining those teams that weren't so lucky probably made improvements. And the Colts, they went and drafted a quarterback. New Orleans now has Derek Carr. And for Chicago, with new weaponry, DJ Moore being acquired, they hope to get it right with Justin Fields with this second-year offensive coordinator. How about, so now on to week 1. This is what everyone's wondering now. Middle of the week, week 1, with all the luck rankings in mind, our basis from last year, what we know about them, and who the lucky teams were, who the unlucky teams were. Kerner, what game jumps out to you that could have an effect, whether it be a side or a total?
Yeah, so the one that sticks out to me is the Texans-Ravens game, specifically the total. It's actually showing the second most value to the over according to our luck rankings from last season. And it kind of matches up with how these teams handle the offseason. Both teams ranked bottom 5 in red zone touchdown percentage last year. That's a metric that I do think these teams are going to regress closer to league average this year, especially the Ravens. But the Texans offense should be much better this year. They finally got their quarterback in CJ Stroud. They have better pass catching talent around them this year, a solid offensive line. And, the Ravens could be without their top cornerback, Marlon Humphrey, in this game. So the Texans could be able to put up some points here. And on the other side, I'm very bullish on the Ravens offense. This is the best supporting cast Lamar Jackson has ever had in his career, with Zay Flowers and Odell Beckham Jr. entering the mix. Plus, under new offensive coordinator Todd Monken, this is going to be a much more pass-heavy offense. So that's going to bode well for the over as well. So this is a game where the matchup, all the offseason moves, and our luck ranking totals kind of line up on the over here.
Okay, and both teams, you mentioned Monken for the Baltimore Ravens, Texans, a brand new staff with D'Amico Ryans, a new offensive coordinator, also coming over from San Francisco. Giffen, a potential luck edge that jumps out to you for a game in week 1.
Yeah, we talked sides and totals, but we also have luck team totals. So I am looking at the Indianapolis Colts to go over their 19.5. I haven't bet it, or it's not a pick or anything, but it's certainly something I'm leaning towards as we go into the weekend. They do have what we call the highest luck team total of the week at plus 5.3. So if we look at Indianapolis, their offense and Jacksonville's defense, Indy's offense was unlucky last year, and Jacksonville's defense was lucky to prevent points compared to what they should have. So combined, there's a plus 5.3 rating for Indy. To put that in perspective, when full game totals were at least 5 points, that really was successful towards the latter half of the season. So a team total be that much, I think, is very notable. The Jaguars haven't really had any major upgrades to their defense, so we don't really expect them to be a whole lot better year over year. So it is a very good metric, this luck metric for the Jaguars defense. I think it should regress a little bit towards them allowing a bit more on the defensive side. And then on the offensive side, of course, for the Colts, the major change, Anthony Richardson, of course, going to be the starting quarterback, a rookie. He does have his accuracy issues, but I think he will be more dynamic than last year's anemic Matt Ryan, Sam Ehlinger duo there at quarterback for Indianapolis. Obviously Anthony Richardson going to be more dynamic, big play upside, both in the passing game and, of course, with his legs. So I really like that upside there, and that's why I'm going to lean over here for Indy's team total.
20.5 points is where you can find the total sitting right now for the Colts against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Colts are home dogs week 1 with their new quarterback, Anthony Richardson. Okay, as we like to normally do, as you watch at home, you're picking apart news, especially if you just drafted your season-long fantasy team, or if you already put a bet in for week 1, whether it be the middle of the summer or earlier this week. Maybe you start hitting the panic button based on some of the news we got. Some big names on the week 1 inactive list. Some of these are possibilities. Some of these are known. The latest was Travis Kelce. He made news on Tuesday with the hyperextended knee. His status for game 1 is in doubt. That's a 2 to 4 week injury. Typically, do the Chiefs roll without him? Chris Jones with the hold-in situation. Not happy with his contract. We found out Sean McVay met with the media Wednesday afternoon. Cooper Kupp ruled out with the hamstring injury, coming off an injury-riddled 2022. Kupp is out for week 1 at Seattle. George Kittle dealing with a groin injury. There's a chance Kyle Shanahan, with Brock Purdy as his, in theory, starter for the entire season, Purdy will not have his binky at tight end. It's really been Shanahan's binky, whether it's Garoppolo or Brock Purdy. So when we pick this apart, let's start from the top here, Kerner. As it pertains to these injuries, we go on the rocks now. Travis Kelce. It has a lot to do with Thursday night's game. We're going to have picks coming up later on in the show with Raybon and Stuckey before we get into the 6-pack. How to assess and what the meaning is of Travis Kelce's injury to the spread, which has moved throughout the course of the week. The Chiefs are down at places now to 4.5. There's still some 5s out there.
Yeah, so this is obviously a big deal. He's probably worth 1 to 1.5 points against the spread, making him one of the most valuable non-quarterbacks in the league. Just given how productive he is in the passing game, just plus how much offense he generates compared to other tight ends. So it's a huge positional advantage for the Chiefs to have Travis Kelce. Now, if you look at last season's, The Chiefs' EPA per play was 0.1 higher when Kelce was on the field versus off the field. And interestingly enough, it was actually the same whether he was on the field or off. It was actually in the run game is when they averaged 0.1 EPA per play higher. There could be a lot of noise in that, but my guess is just KC was more productive running the ball with him on the field because the defense had to plan for the pass and plan for Travis Kelce. But when he was out of the game, they can add an extra defender in the box. Maybe they're less worried about the pass, so they're able to, slow down the running game. Plus, the Chiefs are more willing to call run plays when Travis Kelce is out of the game. We have one example where Travis Kelce missed the game. It was week 16 of the 2021 season. They won 36-10, so obviously they ran the ball at a high rate. But if you look, when the game was close and on early downs, they're running the ball at a 10% higher clip than normal that season. So it's pretty clear they're going to run the ball a little bit more. And back then, they actually had Tyreek Hill they could lean on. They don't have Tyreek Hill anymore. So this might actually be the first situation where not having Tyreek Hill can impact them even more than we saw last year. So as a result, we could see the Chiefs run the ball more and be less efficient running the ball. So Travis Kelce probably has a bigger impact on the total. I'm guessing he's probably worth closer to 2 points on the total itself. So early on, we have seen that sort of impact. We did see it go from 54.5 down to around 52.5 at spots. So I think the total is specifically where Kelce has the bigger impact.
For sure. And I would imagine when you speak to a total, it's about when you get down to the red zone and can you punch it in for a score. He is that guy who creates opportunities that you have to be accountable for everybody. But, Kelce is that guy where you've got to be super accountable in the red zone when Patrick Mahomes gets down there. So quickly on Chris Jones, a hold out as opposed to a hold in. I misspoke. There's been hold ins now. It's a new term we've heard in the National Football League in this offseason, going into training camps preseason. Chris Jones on that defense, I'm curious as to what he means if he's out for this game and how it could possibly set up Jared Goff. And maybe to speak to your point on the total, maybe that helps the Lions to score some points because he is the nucleus. Yeah. Chris Jones is the nucleus of this Chiefs defense if they stop anybody.
Yeah, obviously, Travis Kelce is getting all the headlines, but the loss of Chris Jones here could be just as significant. He's probably worth right around a full point, which is elite for a defensive player. Like prime Aaron Donald is probably worth 1.5 to 2 points against the spread. But Chris Jones is a difference maker in both the run and pass game. And his impact is clear in terms of run defense. If you look at opponents' yards per rush last season, when he was on the field, it was 4.3 yards per carry. When he was off the field, it jumped up to 5.8 yards per carry. So it's pretty clear, he has an impact on the run game, but also on the pass game. He had the third highest pressure rate for an interior defender last season. The Chiefs had a 36% pressure rate when he was on the field, which ranked 7th. It fell all the way down to 32% when he was off the field, which dropped them all the way down to 21st. And that could be a significant factor in this matchup just because of how much Jared Goff's efficiency drops when he does face pressure. Last year with a clean pocket, he averaged 8.5 yards an attempt. When facing pressure, it jumped all the way down to 4.7, which is the second biggest drop-off among the 40 qualified quarterbacks last year. So, that's going to have a significant impact on the passing game as well. Chris Jones is probably worth a full point. And again, that would go the other way on the total. Like you said, the Lions are going to be able to move the ball easier, score more points. Yep. So the Jones and Kelce injuries kind of offset each other in the total a bit. Overall, I think the net loss here is about 1 point on the total.
Books already had baked in the Cooper Kupp possibility of being out. Lines at 5.5 at Bet365. Similar to what you said on Travis Kelce, it's about a point and a half. More impact on the total in that game. Want to go to Giffen here, though, Kerner. We'll get back to you. Want to go to Kerner here on Joe Burrow. Now, Burrow expected to play. Everyone lost their minds in August when he had the calf strain. He's getting carted off the field. He returned to practice. The expectation is he plays. But as we saw, and I realized the mobility of quarterbacks, there's an uptick in mobility when the games mean more in the postseason. We saw Burrow kind of take it up a notch as it pertains to his ground game. But for this regular season matchup with the Cleveland Browns and their stout front seven, how much do we have to take into account Joe Burrow's lack of mobility in this calf injury, though he is expected to play.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting situation. Of course, Joe Burrow, just about an hour and a half ago, said he's good to go for this week. So I do think any other news that comes out this week seems to be trending in the positive direction. So let's keep that in mind. But should somehow there be a big setback, Burrow would be around 6.5 to 7 points worth of value against the spread, especially with Jake Browning as one of the worst backup quarterbacks in the NFL. You know, if somehow some really catastrophic news came out about Joe Burrow, which we're not expecting, the Browns could be maybe around -4, -3.5. You could maybe push past that key number of -3 there to favor the Browns if Jake Browning were to be quarterback, but not really expecting that. One thing I think is very interesting here, using our luck rankings, the end of 2022 season luck rankings, the Browns are 22 places more unlucky than the Bengals. So that would be the highest luck ranking difference if we were to apply last year's luck rankings to this game, which would mean we would favor betting on the Browns to cover the closing spread. And I say the closing spread because that's key. As you mentioned, Burrow, he's the third highest quarterback rating when throwing outside of the pocket, and 8th when he does throw from the pocket. So maybe if he has less mobility, less ability to scramble outside of the pocket, then his overall efficiency takes a hit, which means if we like the Browns based off luck, if we like the Browns based off a little bit of maybe limited mobility for Joe Burrow, really like betting on the Browns on this side. I think the plan is to hold off on betting Cleveland, see if it reaches +3 for the Browns. And if not, I don't mind +2.5 as we get closer to game time, betting on them as the unluckier team in this matchup.
All right, so there's your blunder for as it pertains to the happy hour. Some big names heading into week one that are not right. A sour taste in their mouth after having what we've heard for them. Now time for some preseason dart throws. This will be a theme for today's show entering week one. These are some popular preseason futures available. Some include Justin Herbert to have the most regular season passing yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown, most regular season receptions at 12-1. David Montgomery, who will be featured on Thursday night, most regular season rushing touchdowns at 28-1. These are some of the more popular plays that are out there heading into the season, especially with Herbert. You consider Kellen Moore coming over from the Cowboys, new OC. Can he get the most after getting the bag from the LA Chargers? Sean, you gave out a bet at +1,800, and since you're now the line mover, and we're looking forward to your prop, I know many of us are, your prop that will come out for Thursday night, a player prop, which I know you're not there yet. You'll get there soon. I know you will. You're trying to enjoy your happy hour. You are on a player that is featured tomorrow, but you're looking at him from a season-long perspective. Give us a few thoughts on Jared Goff for your dart throw.
Yeah, so I like Jared Goff to lead the league in touchdown passes this year at 35-1. The Lions scored the third most offensive touchdowns last year with 52. It's going to be tough to match that number this year, but at least they were able to retain offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, at least for one more season. So that should give them continuity. They should be just as potent this year. So if they do end up being inside the top 3 in touchdowns again this year, we could see more come via the pass. Only 56% of their offensive touchdowns came through the air last year. The league average is typically around 61%. And Jared Goff conceded a ton to the touchdown leader, Jamal Williams, last season, who scored 17 touchdowns. A lot of them were close to the goal line. So we could easily see this metric swing the other way and have Goff account for 65% or more of the Lions' offensive scores, which would put him in the running for most passing touchdowns, which is why I'm projecting this closer to 23-1. And it's interesting to note that, the market leader, the guy that should be the favorite to take this down, Patrick Mahomes, might be without his top target for the first couple weeks of the season. So another reason why I love taking Jared Goff to lead the league in the touchdown passes at 35-1 right now.
Jared Goff did not throw an interception in his final 9 games. He was precise down the stretch for the Lions, who are one of the great stories last year. And like you said, continuity with the coordinator and the head coach with it seems to be a new running back in the first round. They've got some formidable pieces around him. Nick Giffen, your dart throw, please. Try to throw this one on the nose. It might be difficult, but this one might be out of your control because of the injury history of the particular dart you're tossing.
Yeah, we're trying to get a bullseye here, and this one's going to be very interesting. I'm going to go with Tua Tagovailoa to have the most passing yards in the NFL this year at plus 2,200, 22 to 1. And for me, kind of Sean kind of alluded to this in the Jared Goff side, but this is just as much a Mahomes fade as the favorite in this market as a Tua play. So let's start with Mahomes here. Kansas City was 5th in our luck rankings last year. So if there's any regression, could be a little bit worse for them this year. They also face the worst schedule downgrade year over year. So that is a big schedule hit for the Kansas City Chiefs. Big strength of schedule hit. And of course, Travis Kelce injury concerns. Might he be out week 1 or even a little bit longer? So all those things are a little bit of reason that we may want to look elsewhere in this market. So turning over to Tua here, Tua paced for 4,640 passing yards over 17 games. Now, he only played 13, and really he played like 12 and a half from that concussion game. So if we scale the 12 and a half games to like 17 games, that would be closer to like 48-25, over 4,800 yards. That would have been second in the NFL last year on that pace. Another thing I really like, he has learned to fall down better. Remember that concussion last year? Scary one came from when he hit the back of his head on the turf. Well, he's been doing jiu-jitsu in the offseason to learn to fall. I've seen at least 1 or 2 examples in the preseason of him falling more correctly and better. So I know our predictive analytics colleague, Billy Ward, MMA guy himself, will be happy about that for Tagovailoa here. Also, I just love the continuity this team has. Tua, along with his wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, along with the coaching staff, of course. So, the second year for this whole group together. If we look at Hill and Waddle, they made up the bulk of the receiving yards here. No other player last year for the Dolphins amassed more than 417 receiving yards. So as long as that core trio of Tua, Hill, and Waddle are there, there's a lot of big upside potential here, big play potential. So I like Tua Tagovailoa at 22 to 1.
Yeah, the cardio, the diet. I don't have to worry about grappling. Maybe Billy can dive into that at some point as the year goes on with Tua. But signs pointing up, and he's got some confidence about him. He had some. Ryan Clark was kind of chirping him about it, but Tua seems pretty comfortable in his own skin. Sean Kerner, Nick Giffen, thanks for stopping by. Happy hour, and no need to get lucky with these guys. They know how to break it down. Thanks for stopping by.
Cheers.
Anytime.
All right. On to bar trivia. And this next guest that we have on Happy Hour is our own Evan Abrams, our director of research. I am looking forward to this throughout the course of the year because it allows me as the host to take a step back and you get to take the mic. And when you go to Happy Hour and someone's running the mic and running the trivia or DJing, you got to command this room. So hit me with your best shot here as it pertains to Evan Abrams trivia on Happy Hour.
First of all, hello, how are you? This is going to be a little bit lighter, a little bit looser, a little bit of wagertainment. That's how I like my segments here. So let's start with a little bit of trivia off the top. So who was the last number 1 pick to win their first career start in week 1? And a little, this guy on the t-shirt right here, it's not him. So that is the first hint on the situation. It's not this guy. So whoever it is, put your guesses into the chat. Brendan, think about it. And that's where we are with the trivia question.
All right, we'll get back to that. Again, it's not Bryce Young. He has not played yet in the NFL. And no, I don't even know if Carolina won their preseason opener. So anyway, it's not that either. Okay, break it down for me. This is great because I feel like when you walk into an establishment and you're consuming information, and you do a great job of this, you come out with all of your trends and your tidbits and all this info that's so digestible. But then you want to break this news to people. What are some of the trends that folks want to keep in mind here, middle of the week, as they prepare to make their picks for whether it be Thursday or Sunday?
Yeah, we're going to call these top shelf trends. I think about it like, you go to the bar, maybe a shot, maybe 2 shots. So it's 2 things. Ready? Number 1, in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers made 119 home starts at Lambeau Field. Only 8 of those came as a home underdog, about 7%. So Rodgers' 6-1-1 career against the spread as a home dog. And just for some reference, since 2008, Tom Brady only had 7 such starts. So basically about the same track as Rodgers. So that's tidbit number 1, just a fun one, with the Jets obviously home dogs to the Bills on Monday Night Football this week. And number 2, so the AFC North, Bengals, Ravens, Steelers, Browns, All 4 win totals currently add up to 40. That is the most for any division since realignment in 2002. Now, I know what you're going to say. One more game, more opportunities, but it is still the highest since we moved to 18 weeks as well. So currently they're telling us this is,
they play each other. They all play each other. Let's keep that in.
Fair enough.
Still twice.
So the hardest division potentially we've seen in a long time, all very high win totals. So those are your top shelf trends, your shots at the bar.
All right. I mean, it's true. I feel like everywhere you look, everyone's making a case for Pittsburgh, who is considered right now it's Pittsburgh and Cleveland in the basement. And then if it all goes right in Baltimore, health related, that's a possibility for an over. And I think we all, based on the Bengals, they lost some pieces on that defense, but when Burrow's right, one of the top tier quarterbacks going in the league. As I mentioned, Kansas City, Detroit, we're approaching close to 24 hours before kickoff. Some snacks. Some quick snacks. These aren't going to be the pretzel bites and the fried pickles that you're ordering, but I mean, these will fit. I'm sure people will be eating these kinds of things. The wings, possibly tomorrow night when they're watching this game. Some quick snacks on Kansas City and Detroit, please.
Yeah, sure. So teams getting 3.5 points or more. Now that is currently still the Lions, even with the line movement against Patrick Mahomes, 37-30-1 against the spread, but most recently, last season, 10-4 against the spread. So a good opportunity potentially to go against Kansas City, even 28-15 over the last 3 years. So it's been a profitable way to kind of fade Kansas City with that line getting 3.5 or higher, and even over 4.5, about the same numbers. So that's one. And I know we've talked about this before, but even with the total going down to about 52.5 from 55 where it was, Lions games, week 1, gone over 12 straight years, including 15-1 in their last 16. And when you look to the other side, Patrick Mahomes, 5-0 to the over in week 1s. That's going over the total by 10.9 points per game. So really high, and they kind of work together. So those are your 2 little bar snacks for you.
Okay, we'll give the trivia host a chance to throw his dart before we let you go, and then we'll get to our trivia answer. Your dart throw bet before the NFL season begins.
You're not going to love this as a Patriots guy, but I'm going to toss this one right at the dartboard. I'm going to say the Patriots score the fewest points in the NFL. Crazy. Insane. But
the fewest points in the league with Bill O'Brien?
Yeah.
Come on, man. All right.
Listen, 30-1's where I got it at. I've been told recently like 14, 15-1 now. So odds getting cut in half, but 27, 6, 16 and points. I think it's possible. But let's get to the trivia answer here. So do you have an answer yourself? Okay.
David Carr. Jared Goff.
David Carr. David Carr. It's 0-13-1. Number 1 picks, first start. David Carr. You got to go all the way back to 2002. There's your bar trivia. It's not Jameis Winston. So enjoy your drinks. Have a good day.
Tip your bartenders. Tip your trivia host. Evan Abrams, thanks for stopping by.
See you later.
All right, folks. Happy Hour is presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with the promo code ACTION to get Bet365's exclusive sign-up offer in New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, Virginia, and Iowa. Bet $1, get $200 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, as Happy Hour winds down, don't forget, coming up at 6 o'clock Eastern on the Action Network YouTube, the Sunday Six-Pack with Chris Raybon and Stuckey. 6 picks for NFL Week 1. As a tease to that program, we welcome Stuckey and Raybon into the Happy Hour. Gents, thanks for joining us on the program. Great to have you on our first show. Well, as the Happy Hour winds down, you might have that friend or two or that coworker or two. It sometimes very well may be the both of you in cases. I've come across the both of you in these circumstances, I feel like, where you should mix in a water, because some of the things that are coming out of your mouth and some of your thoughts and some of your language and actions, they don't make all that much sense. So we figured, why not we pull from the audience and judge people. People watching is a great aspect of Happy Hours. So we took some tweets. You two were very generous to ask the people what's on their mind as Week 1 approaches. Let's look at this one here from Jay Burns. He's got an idea. Here's a thought for you. Home favorites that are giving more than 4.5 points and put them in a money line parlay. So giving more than 4.5 at home and as a favorite. 5 teams fit that category, Stuckey. The Chiefs, Ravens, Commanders, Vikings, Seahawks. A 5-leg Moneyline parlay, plus 330. Does Jay Burns need to mix in a water?
Yes, I would say he does. Look, just taking all the favorites in the NFL, especially early on in week one, where there's even more uncertainty, weird things happen in week one. For what it's worth, if you did money line every single week one home favorite of 4.5 points or more, I just ran it here. Over the past 25 years, you'd be down a couple $100. So you'd be down doing that. And then just take a look at last year. Anyone remember the Bengals at home? Joe Burrow getting sacked and Watt dominating that game. They lost to 7-point favorites. How about the Titans losing to the Giants? Giants ended up being a surprise team. You go back to the Bills losing to the Steelers in that weird game 2 years ago. So, yeah, just get the parlay, mix in a water, avoid the parlays. I know you want to get greedy, and people have a tendency to do that too often, but just get them out of your vernacular and you'll be better off. So, yes, I say needs to mix in a water.
Feels like there's too much of indication for week one. I can sometimes understand, especially when we look at teasers, Raybon, down the road, where you have a better sample size and more of an understanding of what a team looks like. But to go week one, in this case, 5 teams week one, favored by more than 4.5 at home, what would you caution Jay, who could use a water or two?
I mean, he could use a whole ocean, because I would rather just bet on any
a saltwater
of these.
mixed.
Take your money, save your money, and instead just bet individually on each of those underdog money lines. And I guarantee you're going to make more money. Stucky hit it. We don't know what's going to happen in week one, but we know unpredictable things are going to happen. And that's how we have to react. You got to take what the board is giving you, and that is underdogs. That there's always going to be surprises schematically. There's going to be players that just got a lot better. There's going to be players that got a lot worse. There's going to be so many things in week one that you can't predict, to where you should really never be taking favorites on the money line, but especially in week one, and especially parlaying them. Like, that is, I don't like any of those teams. Like, I would rather bet the money line for the underdog for every single one of those matchups.
Bucks are going to ruin that, by the way. And yeah, and Raybon is right. And you need all of those things to happen for just your one wager. If there's also injury, right? There's just added variance as well. You could have a quarterback go down. And you bring up a good point, Brendan. With the uncertainty early in the season, there's an argument to be made. Look, there's teasers, if you get them at minus 120 or better, and you're crossing 3 and 7, have a lot of value betting the NFL. But even more so later in the year, once the markets become more efficient, and then you really know you're crossing those 2 key numbers. So be careful with those early on as well. But yeah, we need some waters here. Brought some Fiji for our friends.
Yeah. Load up, fill the water bottle if you brought it from work into the establishment. That might not be such a bad idea. I'll mix one in too. Okay, well, Raybon brought up a good point about why not just take, of those 5 teams that fit that mold that Jay brought up, one team that's not included in this would be, one team that is involved as a favorite, the Baltimore Ravens. They are the longest favorite on the board for week one. They're laying 10 points against the Houston Texans. First game in the DeMeco Ryans era, first game in the CJ Stroud era, Will Anderson. They make some splashes in the draft. They bring in a new coach from the San Francisco regime. Keg weighs in and says, I think the Texans on the money line is not a bad look. At Bet365, Texans are plus 375 for week one at Baltimore. Stucky, is Keg onto something, or should he mix in a water and perhaps find a lake, an ocean, a peninsula nearby in Houston?
As usual, Keg needs to mix in a water. I'm not surprised by this. I can tell you firsthand that he has been asked politely to leave my wife's bar a few times for not mixing in a water. So this doesn't surprise me. Also coming from a Bengals fan. But if you're going to choose a moneyline dog, I don't see this one. Look, Harbaugh has, in the Harbaugh regime, the Ravens have dominated at home against rookie quarterbacks. A little pre-trivia. Who's the only rookie quarterback to win in Baltimore since Harbaugh took over in 2008? No one's done it in regulation. My boy, Mitch Bortles Trubisky did it. I think 3 or 4
He needs
years
to mix
ago.
in the water.
The only one to do it, but I just can't see. Look, Marlon Humphrey's a big loss for the Ravens, but with this Ravens new offense, you have a rookie quarterback making his first start on the road in a hostile environment with some offensive line questions due to injuries there. I can't see the Texans pulling this off. However, I will say, while Keg certainly always needs to mix in a water, this is a better option than parlaying all of the money line favorites.
I totally agree.
Ray-Ban?
I think
Keg on to something here?
I don't hate it. I think he's on to the right mindset because let's be real. We've seen the Ravens. Yes, they played really well in week 1, but we've seen them stumble here and there. Like I remember a couple years ago, I think it was, we were all excited about the Ravens going against the Raiders, and we thought Lamar was going to come out and really be improved, and then they just dropped the game by 6 points. I think they were favored by 7. So this Texans team going to be better than a lot of people think. I personally think it's a better play on the spread. You know, a lot of times you see these, rookie head coaches first game on the road undervalued. They're hitting at about a 58% clip over the past 2 decades or so. But can they win the game? Yes. But I would take the spreads. But I'm not going to tell you to mix in the water because you're getting plus 375. And I think your mind is in the right place because, as Stuckey mentioned, we saw the Bengals drop a game to a Steeler team that nobody thought they were going to lose to. I'm higher on the Texans in the market, so I don't hate it. I'm not going to tell you to mix in the water because I like the thought process, but I'd rather take the spread.
2020, they blew doors in their home opener. 2018, they blew doors against the Buffalo Bills.
Dolphins?
2020 was
Josh Allen's debut. I think
How about
the
the
Ravens
Ravens?
were 40,
Like
Ravens home
55-7 or something like that. Yeah, it was,
47 to
yeah.
3, I think it was.
yeah, it's dangerous. I mean, but a loss is a loss. Like you don't lose any more money for if you get blown out. You know what I mean? So if you feel like if you feel like you want to do it, go ahead.
Yeah, the parlay portion of the discussion might require water with ice, and as you said, an ocean. And this one, a single glass might do. So as we know, as we approach week 1 Sunday, there will be more data that comes out as far as public sides. And one of the games we did discuss in that money line parlay idea, the Commanders, a touchdown favorite against the Arizona Cardinals, without Kyler Murray, with a new head coach, what they're going to do at quarterback. The Commanders are getting 80% of the bets. 80% of the bets. Stuckey, do the people need to be? Do they need to settle down here on all this Washington love, or is the public on the right side? Does the public need to mix in a water for their love for the Commanders in week 1?
I'll say no. They're okay. I mean, don't go overboard. Bet responsibly, as always. I don't. I project this, just under 7, so I don't see any value yet. We want to keep an eye on the status of Terry McLaurin, who could be important here as well. We still don't know who the quarterback is going to be for the Cardinals. The defense is bad. It's going to be a mess. But again, weird things happen in week 1, and laying a touchdown in the NFL with, an unproven quarterback is a risky proposition, but this Cardinals team is bad. If I had to bet one side, I'm going with the Commanders. I'm surprised it's, at the amount of love, but they're okay here as long as they're drinking moderately.
Ray-Ban, this is one of the biggest public sides of the week. Josh Dobbs could be the quarterback for Arizona. The total's really low, too. So how much scoring do we even get in this game to be willing to lay a touchdown? Is the public crazy?
I don't think the public is crazy. They're on to something here with what should be the weakest quarterback and the weakest team to take the field in week 1. But if I'm taking a side, I am taking the Arizona Cardinals. We've seen in week 1, underdogs by 6.5 or more are 39-16 against the spread, 71% since 2005. Again, like Stuckey said, weird things tend to happen. And we've got to remember the uncertainty. And this is why, especially early in the year, we don't like favorites. Because uncertainty favors, getting points, getting juice on the money line, things like that. So it favors the underdog, essentially. So
does a low total, as Brendan pointed out.
Right, yeah, exactly. So in this spot, we haven't seen Jonathan Gannon. We don't know exactly how he is going to coach this team, what he's going to bring to the table. I'm taking the Cardinals. I think the public does need to mix in a water. 80%. I mean, you're getting +7 against one of the worst teams in the league. Like, yes, the Cardinals probably are the worst, but Washington's probably bottom 5, bottom 6 in most people's power rankings.
We're handing out waters left and right to the public, to the people on X, Twitter. How about one of our own? Simon Hunter of the Favorites podcast. Typically, he'd be the one, if you tune into the Favorites podcast at Action Network, he'll be telling Chad Millman to mix in a water. But here, let's hear what Simon has to say. He weighs in on Monday night's game between the Jets and the Bills.
I am praying, Chad, this gets the 3. Please give me this 3. I'm dying for it to get there. I've been annoying the shit out of all these bookies all week, just saying, give me the 3. You know you're going to have the 3 by Monday. Just give me it now. Why are we wasting time at the 2.5? Anyone I talk to, it's like 4-1, 5-1, the money, the tickets, all of it on the Bills. Sometimes it's too easy. It just feels like it's setting up that way.
Sometimes it's too easy. Simon strikes me as that guy that you're hanging out with for the duration of happy hour. And you're like, can you just get this guy out of my face? Just give this guy what he wants. Just get out of my face. Well, do we need to give Simon a water, Stuckey? Do we need to talk him out of this? If indeed the line gets to 3, it is at 2.5 at Bet365. The Jets is home dogs on Monday night.
I would say we can give him a half of a water. And we don't never have to hydrate Chad. Chad's always well hydrated and in bed by like 9 o'clock. But it's never the NFL. I will say the NFL is never too easy. Maybe if you're betting some low hanging props, but as far as sides are concerned, it's never too easy. It's one of the hardest markets to beat. So that's where you got to mix in a water there. Yeah, I will say, waiting for a number, getting a key number, all of those are, very, very sharp and things that you want to start practicing when betting the NFL. It's also a Monday night game. Unfortunately, people will chase, which you shouldn't do. And there's going to be a lot more action coming in. And maybe, I'm not sure where the market and public is going to go with this. Maybe because there's Aaron Rodgers, a lot of Jets love as well. But there's a chance maybe you get to 3. So I would agree that if you want the Jets, wait to see if it gets to 3. Betting it now at 2.5 is much more detrimental than if you waited and it went to 2. Than betting it now and then it goes up to 3 because of how key that number is. I also, if it went to 3, I would lean that way, but I prefer to tease the Jets up 2.5 to 8.5, classic teaser leg for this weekend. I do think that the Jets defensive line could cause a lot of problems here, especially early on in the season. That's the one area that I'm worried about with the Bills is that offensive line, and that could be a difference maker, but I think should be a close competitive game.
And some commitment to a running game that has been one of their criticisms outside of their quarterback. Raybon over at Action Network, 70% of the bets, 83% of the cash in on Buffalo at 2.5. Does Simon need to be talked down and stop being thinking things are so easy that if this does get to 3?
I mean, yeah, I'm mixing the water for him just for the easy comment because that just sounds like a way. You gotta stay humble. It's like Stuck said, it's never easy.
It's also still the Jets. Nothing's ever easy betting on the the New York Jets.
Yeah, and like I'm rocking the Joe Klecko 1984 right now because I just had to throw this on. I'm a Giants fan. I love jerseys though, and the Jets. Their uniforms are so goddamn ugly now. I wish they could go back to the 90s ones, the 80s ones, the 60s ones. These are monstrosities, but the Jets at +3 at home are the right side. Now, that being said, Aaron Rodgers, new team, new offensive line, played a few snaps in the preseason, but generally he's kind of been relaxed. Could be some growing pains. Breece Hall coming back with a major injury. Could be a slow start. Dalvin Cook hasn't practiced much either. Could be a slow start. Hasn't run behind this line before. So don't be surprised if the Jets, at least offensively, get out to a sloppy start. I may also, want to look at the under in this game because I think it's a toss up, all things considered. So I would lean Jets. You're getting 3 points at home, but I would just expect the Jets offense to come out a little sluggish, and their defense is great. So I know the Bills are amazing, but the Bills offense may struggle a little bit as well. We saw that in the matchups last year.
In Raybon's eyes, he makes swag look easy with his outfit on the first episode of Happy Hour. As we've asked our other guests on today's show, gents, we'll move along now to, we'll put the waters aside, and now we'll throw some darts. Dart throw bets that we've all gone through throughout the course of the show. Stuckey, how about a dart throw as the night winds down for you, for NFL?
Yeah, I have a piece out on ActionNetwork.com and the Action Network app. It's all of my future bets. There's at least one in every division, either a win total or future. I'm going to throw out one of those that I like in the Packers to win the division. Couple of points here. Just really buying the upside of Jordan Love. A lot of uncertainty there, which I like when you're trying to throw a dart. I like what I've seen, but it's a very small sample size. But they have the young pieces at wide receiver in place. And look, they still have a really good offensive line. It's a really talented defense. So if Jordan Love hits, this team could easily win one of the weakest divisions in the NFL. Look, the Lions are a really good team. I shouldn't say really good. They're slightly above average, but I think they come into the year overvalued. Definitely to win the division. I even show a little bit of value on their win total under, although maybe getting half of a Chiefs team, which we'll talk about soon, could help. But I think that they're overvalued. I'm not a believer in the Vikings. Their defense is going to be bad. They're quietly rebuilding there without letting you know, even though they'll still be competitive. I just have no interest in Minnesota, who's a huge negative regression candidate. So I really think it comes down to the Bears and Packers for your dart throw. I'm not a believer yet in Fields. I just need to see an improvement in the accuracy department. But more importantly, the Bears have a worse defense and the Bears have a worse offensive line than the Packers. So I'll take Green Bay, who I think gets a win in week 1 in Chicago to start the season. So yeah, I'll throw a little dart on the Packers to win the division and buying the upside of Love.
If Jordan Love isn't throwing darts accurately by Thanksgiving, the Packers will be throwing darts in that NFL draft because I think they're going to have to go after their next guy. Raybon's dart throw, it actually consists of 4 tosses, and he hopes to get them all right. Why don't you explain yourself, Raybon, and how you would like to throw with this board?
Yeah, so it's not often I get the opportunity to do something like this, but I'm going with an exact finish in the AFC South, and the consensus is Jaguars, Titans, Colts, Texans. I have the Titans rated as a better team than the Jaguars, and I have the Texans rated as a better team than the Colts. Great value. I think that those odds should be closer to plus 800, really. So I do think you have some value there.
We are approaching 24 hours from NFL kickoff for 2023 Chiefs and Lions. We will leave it to Stuckey and Raybon to take us home. The market report, the very latest, the line movement because of the Travis Kelce injury news, the murkiness surrounding Chris Jones. Chiefs are down to minus 4.5 when you shop around. And the money coming in, the number of bets still coming in on Kansas City, but now that percentage in cash has completely done a 180. Only 30% of the cash now on Kansas City at minus 4.5. The total has come down a few points as well. Stuckey, a pick for Lions Chiefs with this latest news on Kelce, and really all signs pointing in the wrong direction for the reigning champions.
Yeah, I have nothing here. If you grab the Raybon grabbed, I think a +6. If you got this early enough when the news broke, I think that was probably the right side. I didn't show any value originally. Many professional bettors will tell you that only quarterbacks are worth something to the spread. I disagree with that. There could be cluster injuries or star players, depending on the drop off to their replacement. They could be impactful to the spread, maybe a half point to a point. I think Kelce and Jones. I mean, the drop off from Jones to his backup is massive, and he's especially against that really good offensive line. And obviously, they're going to miss Kelce, but it is still Mahomes, who has 18 touchdowns and no interceptions in 5 career season openers, like 1,500 yards. It's still Mahomes against a bad defense that gave up more explosive passes than anyone in the NFL. But after adjusting for Kelce and Jones likely being out, I'm right around 5 5.1, I think, is my actual number. So I'm not betting this pre-flop. I agree with the unders tick down to, I think, where it should be. I will say what I will be betting on this, tradition unlike any other, if I'll be betting a prop, whatever Sean Kerner's opening Thursday night NFL player prop is, when he puts that in the app, I will be following along. That is one of the few times I bet props during the season. So shout out to Kerner, and that's what I'll be betting. Nothing on the side or total for me.
Raybon, you bet Lions early in the summer at +7. You went back in on +6 with the movement now to -4.5 for the Chiefs. Where do you stand with this line movement in the market report?
The line, as far as the spread, is fair. You know, I do think Kelce is worth something tangible to the spread in the form of probably about a point, because not only is Kelce the most important piece to that passing game outside of Mahomes, obviously, but this is short notice, right? Like, we always laud Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes for their ability to prepare when they have extra time. Well, week 1, you always see that, but now they're up against it. You know, if Kelce's going to miss, they have to reformulate a plan. Now, I will say this. They have a very deep group of wide receivers, 7 guys that they could conceivably give starter snaps to if they wanted to. So I don't think that the Chiefs are you're just going to stop scoring. So I think, you know, Stuckey, you mentioned that you think the total is at the right spot. I think there's a little bit of an overreaction to the total because, number one, without Chris Jones, the Lions are going to move the ball up and down the field. Forget the Chiefs for a second. The Lions are going to move the ball up and down the field. No pressure. Goff will be chilling. They got Jahmyr Gibbs. You know, they haven't seen him before. The Lions offense is going to hum. They were top 5 last year in DVOA. I think the total should still be around 54. I do agree with the spread getting tighter, but the total, I still think, whether it's because of the Chiefs, the Lions putting pressure on the Chiefs, or the Chiefs, as they do, putting pressure on the Lions, or it's just a good old-fashioned shootout, I just still think we see a lot of points here.
My biggest fear with the Chiefs going run heavier or however they move the ball down the field is scoring efficiency in the red zone, because I think that's where they're going to miss Kelce the most. And then it's not like they have like a dominant possession receiver that, you know, you like a dominant one that you can rely on down in the red zone. And then without Kelce, you could see their red zone scoring efficiency drop, and then you get a couple more field goals than touchdowns, but point taken.
I mean,
yeah, they could get off on this though. They could run the ring around the Rosie. We saw Sky Moore score in the Super Bowl down there. Yeah, something tells me Mahomes will get off on this. Oh, they'll find a way for more bulletin board material. Oh, no one thinks we've got a chance now to dominate this game without Travis Kelce. Just offensively speaking, that's all the time we have though for both of you. Save your other thoughts.
Andy Reid, no one's better in the red zone.
Yeah. Party comes at 6 o'clock for the Sunday six-pack with Chris Raybon and Stuckey. Thanks for joining the first ever happy hour. No waters needed for you two. O'clock on the Action Network YouTube page. Stay tuned for that. Refresh. Go check that out. Please download the free award-winning Action Network app. For all of our guests today, Brendan Glasheen signing off. Be sure to like this video if you do so kindly, and also subscribe to our Action Network YouTube page. I'm Brendan Glasheen. Thanks for joining our first happy hour of the 2023 NFL season, presented by Bet365. Good night, and stay tuned for the Sunday six-pack.